accès à un millier d'étudiants à travers notre plateforme. Merci de choisir Diaspo Academy, le meilleur choix. Pour plus d'informations, allez sur www.diaspoacademy.com. Diaspo Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afric Today. Fogham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afric Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Afric Today, the best of digital TV.
L'entrepreneuriat digital vous intéresse-t-il? Vous voulez apprendre à construire des projets digitaux? Aimeriez-vous gagner des revenus passifs conséquents en tout lieu? Voici la plateforme des professionnels du digital, la Diaspo Academy. Ici, vous retrouverez les meilleurs professionnels de la diasporama mondiale connectés sur notre plateforme. Vous allez pouvoir acquérir des formations adéquates qui feront de vous des entrepreneurs digitaux compétents. Étudiants, entrepreneurs, coachs, instructeurs et entreprises, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Elle vous offre la possibilité de suivre votre formation en mode virtuel à partir de chez vous, où que vous soyez sur la planète. Toutes nos formations disponibles en ligne sont dispensées de manière interactive. Il suffit de vous inscrire et vous pourrez les suivre depuis chez vous. Au cours de la formation, vous passerez des quiz et examens selon votre parcours. En outre, à partir de votre tableau de bord, vous suivrez vos performances et progressions. Vous pourrez aussi communiquer avec vos instructeurs et recevoir des notifications. À la fin de votre parcours de formation, vous recevrez un certificat Diaspo Academy Certified. Que vous soyez débutant ou responsable d'entreprise, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Saisissez-la! Enfin, que vous soyez coach ou instructeur, ayez accès à un millier d'étudiants à travers notre plateforme. Merci de choisir Diaspo Academy, le meilleur choix. Pour plus d'informations, allez sur www.diaspoacademy.com. Diaspo Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afric Today. Fogham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afric Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Afric Today, the best of digital TV.
Welcome. And I want to welcome everyone to today's show with Dr. Butler Yeboah and Zeke Amir Muhammad, the Invisible Man. We are excited today. We have two special, very, very special guests to talk about identity in crisis. Today we have, I'm going to turn over to Zeke Muhammad. So our brother Zeke, so you can introduce
All right.
one of our guest speakers, and I'll introduce our second one.
Thank you, Dr. Butler. The person that you see in the nice tie and shirt is the Assistant Chief Minister for the Lost and Found Nation of Islam under the Honorable Silas Muhammad. His name is Mustafa Salim. He wears quite a few hats. We are going to talk about identity in crisis, but because he's wearing his ecclesiastical hat, he's going to speak in terms of a minister. Before he begins, I would like to say that during the ceremony for the homegoing of Mr. Floyd, the people who are associated with another group, they are the Nation of Islam. And if you would go back 40 years, Assistant Chief Minister, and talk about who actually secured the other person who's more well known, and then you can say whatever you want to after that. You understand?
I believe I do.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
It's on you.
Okay, I'm the Assistant Chief Minister for the Lost Found Nation of Islam, and I've been a follower of the Nation of Islam since 1966. I started to follow the Honorable Silas Muhammad in 1978. After the
I think we might have lost your video.
He froze. Can you hear me?
Brother Salim, I think we lost his video there.
Yeah, he should be back in a minute. But the point I was trying to get him to make was that it was the Honorable Silas Muhammad who stood or reestablished the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And because of that, the contemporary Islam exists today. And during the funeral for Mr. Floyd, it was mentioned that the people from another camp, and this person is much more well known, but it was actually the followers of the Honorable Silas Muhammad who provided security for him. So
yes.
We have been around since 1977. August 21st, 1977 is when the Honorable Silas Muhammad went to the temple. Are you back with us? I see he disappeared again. That's the technology. So you might want to, we have the attorney, civil rights attorney from Haiti. So let her introduce herself, and when the Assistant Chief Minister come back, go ahead. Please introduce yourself, man.
You hear me?
Well, hold on. Now we're going for the, yes, sir. But we're going for the introduction of the attorney.
Okay.
We're going to talk about civil rights. She's from Haiti.
Okay.
Go ahead. Now you're
Mike.
Go ahead.
Is the microphone mute? No.
Yes, and we
you
can hear
guys
you.
can hear me, right? Okay, great.
Yes,
Wonderful. Thank you. Hi, my name is Mary Lynn Pierre. Thank you so much for having me here. I don't understand why I'm kind of blurry, but oh well.
You look fine.
Oh, I look fine to you? Okay, good.
Yeah,
thank
you. Every black woman is beautiful.
Yes, that is true, and I agree with that, which is why I was worried that I was kind of blurry, because I thought I was naturally beautiful, and I don't need, what did I call it, cheesecloth? Is that what they put over the screen? See, I know some of your secrets. Yeah, so I have been practicing law for over 28 years. I wanted to become a lawyer ever since I was 12 years old. On July 2nd, 1978, I learned about Thurgood Marshall and what great works he was able to do using the law. And ever since then, I fell in love with the law, and that's all I ever wanted to do. Basically, was to work in the law, and I love being a lawyer, and I love letting people know how great the profession is and why they should get into it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone about it.
Thank you so much. And I want to welcome both our guests today. And the purpose of today's discussion is we're gonna discuss how the world's present attention has been focused on the death of George Floyd and his killing on Memorial Day weekend, on Memorial Day 2020, actually, and the effect this is having worldwide. This may have an impact not only here in the nation, but worldwide. And I want to take a moment of silence for us all, just about 30 seconds, a moment of silence for him and for the family, and losing yet another life of a young Black man by the hands of the police. So I wanted to just take a moment of silence and condolence and recognition for the death of Mr. George Floyd. Well, I want to thank everyone, and I hope that everyone worldwide and everyone who's listening today to just take some time aside for this young man and all of the young men that we have lost at the hands of the police, hands of vigilantes, and just our African brothers and sisters who have been taken away so soon before they made an impact. And this death of Mr. Floyd has really been, as I said, worldwide. And we're briefly going to talk about some of the countries. And we're excited that the African nation, and not only the African nation, but Europe, they have Germany, Italy, they're about every single country worldwide has been coming to the aid of the Black Lives Matters. And that should be, I think that's, when you think about a word to say every day, Black, I wake up every morning saying Black Life Matters, because my life matters. And they say all life matters, but Black lives are the ones that are being taken away daily, and I just want to say hourly, around in this nation and around the world. Blacks have been discriminated against and been killed at an undisproportional rate than anyone else. It's alarming to know how many Blacks are killed hourly. And we'll let Ms. Pierre, our attorney Pierre, talk a little bit more about that. But I want to talk about discussion of solidarity, discussion expressions of solidarity within the victims for brutality in the United States and worldwide. So I want Brother Salim and also our attorney Pierre to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to go into that after and talk about the main purpose of this crisis. And then a little bit about what enslavement has done to us, and then addressing some of the brutal, and I say brutal police brutality. I mean, I had the opportunity last night to watch the LA riots, and also LA riots, the Rodney King incident again, and where they showed the movie with Halle Berry. And I recommend that everyone go look at that movie, because it's going to be important that we don't get to that point again, that these officers need to be held accountable. And not only these officers, but lastly, we'll talk about coming back home to our local communities and what it means in our local communities, how we as a community need not only to focus on what the federal government is doing, but we need to start having our police and our governments accountable here at the local community, because that's where it all begins. It all begins here. So I'm going to stop talking. I want to turn it over to our guest tonight, and I want to hear a little bit about what is your feelings and sentiments about expression of solidarity around the world, about this crisis for us, and also a little bit about introduction of the purpose of why we need to talk about identity is in a crisis.
I don't know if you got a chance to listen to Reverend Al Sharpton at the funeral.
Yes.
But he said these words, as I paraphrase, I will pour out my spirit on all the people in the land. And that's what has happened. The spirit of truth and the spirit of righteousness is in the earth at this hour. And it is exposing the unrighteous deeds. Though they may be done in the darkness, they will come to the light. This shows you this death of our brother, that they are so arrogant, so prideful and boastful and venomous that they could snuff out the life of a human being, put their knee on the neck of a human being while he gasps for air, knowing that each time he speaks, he cannot recover from the position that his muscles were in before he uttered that sound. They did this in broad daylight, and there was no one to help him. It's kind of like the story that he told about the Good Samaritan. Everybody passed him by, but one person who wasn't even a member of his tribe or his family or his organization, but they were compelled to look at what was taking place with this unlawful act. And we have a statement by a French legalist, jurist, who basically says that if we have laws and we create laws that diminishes a person's humanity, then all we're doing is creating an atmosphere where crime can be committed. And that's what took place with our brother. A criminal act took place. He was murdered.
Yes.
We don't need any more laws passed that's going to give them another way out. We want to create hate laws. That's another burden of proof that we have, to show and prove that the person had a racist intent. We don't need that. Murder is murder. And the federal government is not going to treat the person any different than a state would if they're forced to enforce the laws. This is where we have to be. We have to enforce laws. And as long as they are not willing to enforce the law, we're going to be right back where we are. Submitted.
Good,
Thank you so much. On that note, Marilyn, please, Attorney Marilyn Pierre, from your perspective, what are some of the things that you see? And as Minister and Brother Salim said, you know, laws, we just make another law for them.
I agree with Minister Salim, because whenever something like this comes to the boiler point, people say, oh, we need to have a commission to study this. We need to pass new laws to do this, that, and the other. And that is not true. We already have all the laws that we need to hold this person accountable. We just need to enforce those laws. And I think it's interesting, and I think we need to remember that the prosecutor, when he first got the case and he watched the videotape, his first reaction was to say, well, I'm not sure that the police officer committed a crime. And that's really why the people got so upset, because everybody's looking at the videotape. Clearly there's a crime that was committed, and yet for the prosecutor.
Oh, we lost the audio.
Okay, we lost.
Sorry. I don't know why it went on by itself. I don't think I touched anything. Sorry. I don't know where it went off. So But I was just saying that I agreed with the minister, because for the prosecutor to say that he's not sure that there was a crime committed after he watched the video of George Floyd getting murdered like that, it was really, really sad. We don't need any new laws. We just need to enforce the laws that we have. And I'm so glad that people are having the reactions that they're having, because all this hurt and all this pain, all this trauma that we have been carrying in our bodies for all these centuries, I think it's just what is being expressed right now. I hope that the fire that is in our bellies continue until the prosecution continues, until after the conviction, because this is not something that is going to be solved easily. We have to be ready for the long, hard battle, and I hope a lot of us are in it for that long, rather than, some people think that it's like, okay, fine, I marched, now can we go home and get back to our lives? No, it's a long, hard battle. We're going to have a lot of difficulties, because people are not going to give power away that easily. And I think nowadays what I'm seeing is a lot of people are trying to appease us. Oh, we agree with the Black Lives Matter movement, buy our products and we will give them, a couple of bucks. That's just trying to appease us. That's not saying that they're going to give us some of the power that they have. And I don't expect them to give us power, because I think power is something that you claim for yourself. Nobody's going to hand it over to you. But what I mean by that is I think that they think that some people could be convinced that if the corporations or the people who are in power now give them, a few crumbs, that they will be happy with that and they will retreat and go back to their lives.
And now, Marilyn, they're going to be putting up a slide quickly that I want you to address. Can you put that slide back up there for us? And this is the slide where a criminal, two criminals, I should say, and the same judge gave, I don't know if you can see this on your screen, gave the same criminal history. Both these individuals have the same criminal history. I won't say criminal, but the same criminal judge gave these two individuals who had the same history a 1,300% difference in sentencing. Could you explain, how can we change this? We know there's laws, but what can we do now to start changing what we see happening every day to us? And you see they gave one person 2 years versus 26 years. And of course, that one person who got 2 years is white versus the other one who's black, who got 26 years in prison for the exact same crime from the exact same judge. Could you tell us a little bit how we can change this? And after that, Brother Salim, please weigh in on what we think we can do as well.
Okay, I will.
Well, I think this is illustrative of what happens in the courtrooms, because no one's paying attention. I myself, because I wanted to be a lawyer, I spent a lot of time in courtrooms. And so I would see some of these same kinds of examples, and I would not understand why. And what I've come to understand is that the people who are in the courtrooms really have your life in the balance. It's one thing for a legislature to make a law saying that, this is legal, this is illegal, this is decriminalized. That's one thing. It's another thing for that judge to look at it and say, well, I'm going to apply this, that, or the other. As you shown in the illustration that you have, just because somebody has the same background, the same, and they have committed the same crime, does not mean that they're going to get the same sentence. Over criminalization, over incarceration, over policing of Black people have been inserted in our DNA. And so we need to get that out. Sometimes you see that even Black judges feel like they have to do what their counterparts do in order to show that they're tough and they're part of the team. One of the reasons why I wanted to be on the bench, and one of the reasons why I ran for judges, because I think it is really important that you have people who recognize people's humanity when they are before you, and you don't judge those people just by the worst thing that this person has ever done. And I think that importance really is what will be effective in the criminal justice system, in the sense that we need everybody to buy into the system. And when you see things like that was just shown on the screen about the disparity, it is really, really difficult for people to buy into the system. And if people don't buy into the system, then they say, you know what, I might as well do whatever it is that I want to do, because, you know, it's a crapshoot.
Judges, I believe, have too much discretion in the range of punishments that they can mete out. Give you an example of how laws don't really help us if we don't get this, change the nature and of the criminal justice system. In the federal laws, they have guidelines that they created to supposedly allow a judge to take a look at these different areas and make a much fairer decision about how punishment should be meted out. But here we are today still dealing with a situation where punishment is so varied that I'm afraid that they're going to get away with such a slap on the wrist. Like in Georgia, a judge can sentence a person from 1 year to 20 years for one offense. Again, like the attorney is saying, we're being over just judged over everything. We have a dilemma, and I'll talk more about what that dilemma is as we go further into this discussion. But it started with the way that they looked at us. And the way that they look at us has been perpetuated by the court system throughout time. So if we go back to 1857, when the Dred Scott decision was made, the Supreme Court of the United States said, and I paraphrase, that no black man has any rights that a white man ought to have to observe. That mindset, that feeling, just as they have engendered hate inside of us, they have engendered superiority in them.
Yes.
So we have a situation where which force is greater? The immovable object or the irresistible force? We've come to a dead halt, a dead standstill, and we got to make a decision about what we're going to do for our children. Because this is not about us anymore. It's about our children and our grandchildren. What are we going to do for them? That's where we are right now. And we've got to make some decisions.
Yeah, we really do. And just to add a little bit to what you were saying about the Dred Scott decision, that decision was written by Roger Taney. It's spelled Taney, but it's pronounced Taney. And we in Maryland have the distinction of having Taneytown, because they said that they held this man in such high esteem that they actually named a thriving town not too far away from where we live after him. And to this day, it's still there. There's nobody marching. There's nobody saying that they're going to change the name of the town. So we have to look at that on a regular basis and know that it's there. And so that continues some of the fight that we have to fight.
Well, thank you. And I want our listeners to remember you can call in. You can call and ask questions of our panelists today, of our guests. Remember, there's a studio number that you can call in. So this is a show where it's live, where you can call in and ask questions. So if you have questions, please call in and you'll be let in to ask your question. So I want to thank both of my guests. I want to shift gears just a little bit. And I want you to talk about how, like we were just told about identity in crisis. You know, basically, how has it been, the American laws, to those who were former enslaved individuals here compared to those who have migrated and the majority of the population? Yeah, brother Salim, you want to start on that?
Let's go back to the Constitution. I know how jurists have tried to explain it, but I don't care how they try to explain 3/5 of a human being or 3/5 of a person, because I've seen the result of what people think about a person of darker skin, of being another ethnic group other than Caucasian. If you black, brown, yellow, or red, you are subject to a whole different viewpoint being looked at by Caucasian people. Now, this attitude, this demeanor that we express toward our brothers has been passed on in the genes of our people.
Yes.
I heard one officer tell another officer, a black officer tell a white officer, "You don't know how to deal with them, but I do."
Lord, damn.
Not saying to the officer, "You're not harsh enough. You're not corrupt enough. You're not insensitive enough to do what needs to be done to this person or that person." We started out on the wrong foot. And Mr. Muhammad teaches us you can't start off wrong and end up right. So we've ended up in this position where nothing is right because they started it off wrong. You said all men are created equal and you told a damn lie. You knew you weren't going to feel that way. You didn't have it in you in the beginning, but you said it anyway. It's a noble ideal, but you can't live up to it. And now that you can't, you feel guilty, some of you. Some people believe in the Constitution. I'm not saying that there are not people, white people, who believe in the Constitution, believe in the rightness of it and doing what is right. They exist, but they're so far and few in between that it's not going to make a great deal of difference. It's just not going to make that much of a difference.
And I think also because of the power structure being the way it is, nobody wants to be at the bottom, so nobody wants to be displaced by anybody else. So the whole idea is, if one person who has more melanin in their skin is making progress, a lot of people, and like you said, Brother Salim, not everybody, because there are some very wonderful allies who are working with us, but more people than there should be, look at that as a direct threat against their power. And they don't see it as a good to humanity. For instance, when you look at all the statistics and they talk about diversity and they talk about us being our full selves, everything improves because we learned how to get along better. Therefore, we learned what we could share with one another, and by sharing ideas and sharing the knowledge that we each have, we enhance each other's knowledge. But that's not what we see. What we see is that people say, I have a crumb, and if I share part of my crumb with you, I will have less of a crumb. Instead of saying, oh, okay, I have a crumb. If I share my crumb with you and you share your crumb with me, then we will learn how to make a bigger pie out of those crumbs.
That's
I'd like to jump in.
Yes, go ahead.
Continuing along that, Attorney Pierre, what you said, I'd like to share this from the 1960s. Says the 1960s were tumultuous years indeed. During the long hot summers from 65 to 68, American cities saw approximately 150 race riots and other uprisings. The protests were a sign of profound citizen anger about a nation that was, according to the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, quote, moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. I'm almost finished. Says economically, that was certainly true. In 68, 10% of whites lived below the poverty level, while 34% of African Americans did, and 2.6% of white job seekers were unemployed compared to 6.7% of black job seekers. And a year before Dr. King's death, he had began organizing the Poor People's Campaign to, quote, dramatize the plight of America's poor of all races and make it very clear that they are sick and tired of waiting for a better life. Now, all of us heard at Mr. Floyd's homegoing how they were planning to go back to Washington to complain and beg and so forth. You keep talking about crumbs, sound like Malcolm, about begging at the rich man, you know, the crumbs and so forth. So I'm in total agreement, and I'll say this and then I'll stop. I had a chance to interview Dr. Ralph David Abernathy before he died, and he said that during the protest, if they had just waited a little longer and held out, they could have bought the bus company and done so much more. And so we're moving into a phase now where we talk about, the whole world talking about Black Lives Matter, but where is the substance? Okay, I'm through.
Yes.
Oh, and I'm sorry if I could just add one more thing to that.
Go ahead.
You know, I admire, Brother Malcolm, if I could call him, so much. I just, I'm just crazy about that man. I really think that he shaped a lot of my ideals in the sense that he was able to tell people exactly what it was. And even though it was hard for some people to take it, because when you're in a position of privilege, sometimes you don't realize what difficulties the other side are having. And so he had to make it clear to some people that, hey, it's not the land of milk and honey for everybody. Yes, and so I'm glad that you brought him up, and I'm glad I was able to channel him, because that is somebody I try to channel on a regular basis.
Okay. Well, let me give you this quote from Dr. Abernathy very quickly. It says, we come with an appeal to open the doors of America to the almost 50 million Americans who have not been given a fair share of America's wealth and opportunity. And that's what Abernathy said, and we will stay until we get it. We know that they didn't have a successful Poor People's Campaign, and we're still on the bottom, and the pandemic that has, arisen has shown everybody that we still haven't made one march, we haven't gone forward, what I'm saying. So if you and the minister could address what we can do to go forward, and before you think about that, I know when we were talking about, because the ambassador was supposed to be here, now you are a proud Haitian descendant, right? You from Haiti. See, yes. Have you heard of the term Afro-descendant? And so we want to be free, and we need our own country too. So there's a whole lot going on. So I get off. Go ahead. Start where you want to.
Okay, well, I tell my children that we're all descendants of Africa, because if the original people were from Africa and we're all descendants of the original people, then therefore we're all from Africa. And I find it interesting that that many white supremacists will not take the DNA test because they know that they cannot meet the one drop rule. And in the concept of race and all those kinds of things, I've studied them for a really long time, and I find I find a lot of that really, really interesting in the sense that people were able to be convinced that they could treat their fellow human beings in such a with such depravity. And I look at the animal kingdom, and I think if you put a polar bear next to a grizzly bear, I don't think the polar bear is going to say, well, I'm much better than that grizzly bear, and I better make that grizzly bear my slave and, subject that grizzly bear to my will. And it's the same thing with dogs. You see dogs with all different fur colors playing around. They, one might say it's because they're colorblind. So
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
not going to pass that up because we do know some science, but it all has to do with that. And the fact that some people were willing to sell themselves like that to that extent because they saw a little benefit that they could get for that moment is really problematic to me. And I think that's what we really, really need to watch out for, because some people will sell us, at the drop of a pin, if they think that they could get a little bit of an advantage over somebody else, and it's sad.
Yes.
And I don't think that there's anything that we could do about that, but I think that there are things that we could do to educate other people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We do have a caller.
Great.
So I want to let this caller come in and ask a question. And as a caller comes in, they're talking about the Poor People Campaign. The Poor People Campaign actually is going to be kicking off, and they're having a march coming up this month. We'll give further news on that. Caller, are you there? Can you please state your name, your first name, where you're calling from, and your question?
Okay. Hello? Hello?
Yes, hi, we can
This
hear
is
you. Yes.
Minya Hassanin. Can you hear me?
Yes, hear
Oh.
you.
Well, she's speaking.
Yes, can you hear us? Hello? Caller, we can hear you.
I am so happy to listen to this great conversation, and I know Miss Lawyer Marilyn. How are you? And also Dr.
Hi,
Evans, and
Mimi,
thank
I'm
you so
fine.
much,
Nice to
Dr.
hear from
Salim,
you.
for this great conversation. I wanted to have I have a comment on this topic, and we are forgetting that all the law that we're having here are given by another people like us, right? But let me tell you something. We forgot about God. And let me tell you something, that the first right I had as I was born, as the moment I came out from my mother's womb to this world and I took my first breath, was when I was born. So the first right I had was to breathe. So that is why it's so hurtful to me. I mean, this discrimination and racism, and it's a game that they play whenever they want during election, whatever is going to fit their place, right? But what really made me so mad today, that is not just the discrimination according to your skin color, which when God talked to us, he says, all mankind, we are created from different nation and tribe to get to know one another, not to fight with one another. And the most righteous person will be judged by that. But leave that alone, okay? We're not going to, the separation of religion and the state, and I don't want to be, talking like I am preaching here. But when the first right that I had was the right to breathe, that was given to me by God when I arrived to this world, and I cried because I know I was going to have difficulty through my journey through this officer to take my breath away. My breath should be taken by God, not by another human being. That is why I am so upset That's why I'm so sorry that I am, speaking so loud. But I have tolerated this race issue for a long time, and I use let's just bring art and food a universal language. The spices of the world. That you try to make it. Come on, boy. Everybody. We're all a human being. We're created by God. Don't forget, when you go under the ground, you're not taking anything with you. And God is not going to ask you what type of passport you had. And if you have American passport, you're going to heaven. And if you have an African Egyptian passport, you're going to hell. No, it's not going to work that way. It's going to be, what have I done through my journey in this life that I earn God's judgment, not Donald Trump's judgment, not the elected official judgment. No. We have to really connect back with our soul and God, the ultimate owner of this universe. And I really would like to see more discussion and more talk about this, because I am tired of talking about why my skin looks different. If you have a problem, go take it with God. I have no choice of how I came. I don't. So why you're punishing me? I am trying to live my life peacefully. So who are you? That is bothering me. Can someone please answer my question? Thank you so much, and I really apologize for being so, hyped up or whatever you want to say. Okay, thank you.
No, it's totally understandable. I mean, I think especially I Can't Breathe, it has taken everyone back, because as you said, we have the right to breathe. And so thank you so much for calling in. Does someone want to take that question?
I think Minister Salim is best equipped.
I'm a little biased.
Uh-oh, go ahead.
I understand that we have the desire to do right and see others do righteousness to us. But there had to be a time when a purge had to take place. We had to purge out of us some undesirable characteristics. The Caucasian people, when they brought us here to this country, they witnessed certain things about us because we have inside of us a desire to always be the one in charge, to be the one who has the best, who has the brightest, who has the biggest. And out of that, they saw jealousy and envy in us. And they fed that. When they come to a tribe, they bring with them the little trinkets. There are 1,000 kids in the village. They got 10 trinkets. And they making the decision about who they're going to give the trinkets to. Today, they're contracts. Today, they are endorsements. Today, they are some other trinket that they only give out to their select few. A token, if you will. Ever since I was a kid, I heard about who was the first black, who was the best black at this or that or that. And it would raise that person up. I understand all of that. You have to start somewhere. But it's done with an ulterior motive. It's not pure. It's not righteous.
Yes.
So Allah says, I'm going to check one nation with another nation. because that's how he does things. He doesn't put his hands on everything. He doesn't have to. He can cause whatever he will to come into existence. We are being purged of unrighteousness, wherever it comes from. It doesn't have a color. Unrighteousness. Like I tell my children, a lie don't care who tell it, as long as it get told. And we are still inside of the purge. So we got to endure with the idea of racism, race and subdivisions and so forth, because ultimately there has to be a separation. In 1862, President Lincoln said, "It is best for us if we separate, for there is too far a distance between us and you. And as long as you remain among us, you're going to be an underling." That was a prophecy, and it's being fulfilled every single day. We are underlings. We're not equals. And they will never, ever look at us as their equals. I'm sorry. What can I say?
No. Thank you for your comments. No, because that's, I says there's a lot of different viewpoints, but that's really, a lot of that is true. So I want to before, because we're getting about 10 more minutes, but I really want to get some of the local stuff.
Okay, I do want to say one thing about that, and I agree about what Brother Salim said, and his point of view I understand, but I think another part of it is we're not here to have them look at us as equals, because you're right, some of them may never have, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to see what we have in ourselves and demand equality. So nobody's going to hand equality to us. We have to demand it ourselves. And I think that's one thing I do not want to get lost in this discussion.
Yes. Thank you. Now, we have a couple more minutes, but I really wanted to talk about, we looked at what all the laws are making at the federal level. Now, one thing we do know, the laws at the federal level have to be passed by the House, the Senate, then the president has to sign off on it. So at any point in stage, if the House passes something, the Senate has to approve it. If the Senate disapproves it, it doesn't go on. If the House and the Senate, then the president has to sign it. It can be vetoed. So we see where the laws they're making now at the federal level are going. So let's really talk about what we could do at the local level and address some concerns of police brutality right here at home on your own local district. For us, it's here in Maryland. For Brother Salim, it's in Georgia. But looking at the local level, what we can do now concerning police brutality, the murders and denials of rights that our former enslaved individuals had, and those who look like us. So what can we do now at the local level? Because that's where change really happens.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Okay. At one point, I was teaching a class on citizenship, and one of the first questions that they ask is, what is the supreme law of the land? And the supreme law of the land is the U.S. Constitution. So if we go back to the Constitution and that we would not consider the human being, then how can we ever be treated as a citizen and so forth? Go ahead. That's my comment.
Mm-hmm. So legally, what can we do now? Let's go to our attorney, Marilyn Pierre, with that first.
Well, just to follow up with what Brother Salim has said, we can ask for them to amend the Constitution and or repeal part of it, so that way we could take that out of the Constitution. Now, I know we're talking about race mainly, but as a woman, it's also an issue because women do not have equal rights under the United States Constitution. And the fact that we women now make most of the population in this country is really, really sad, because it does put us in a predicament. So we have the race issue, the gender issue, and of course, because of classism, we also have the poverty issue, because so much of the money is concentrated at the top. And I think we just need to demand more.
If I may, hold on. Before you answer, this is what I'm leading to. If we are not part of the U.S. Constitution, and because Minister Salim is wearing his ministerial hat, I'd like him to take off that hat and put on his senator's hat and speak about the need for us and the Afro-descendant nation. And then can we have justice? If you would, sir, please.
I don't really have enough time to.
I see that, yes, sir. So, all right. Okay, I'm sorry.
If I got started, I couldn't.
Yes, sir.
Lead thought. But let me say this: at the local level is where most of the activity should be taken.
Yes.
I've only voted in one presidential election. I don't really vote at all, but I did vote in one presidential election, and it didn't make a difference. So I don't really vote very much anymore. But people have to take an active stance and a role in their individual lives, and group together with the persons that you can group with. You can't get everybody on your side, but you can get a small group. And what the Afro-descendant nation concept is to come up, bring everything under one umbrella. You don't want to lose your identity. You don't want to lose your identity. I don't want to lose my identity. It's a part of who we are. So we can come to an agreement that there is a charter that we should follow. If we can do that, we can still maintain our religion. We can maintain some of our cultural positions. Ultimately, they will merge, but we can come under one umbrella and stop the division that we have, because we can't do anything against the powers that be as long as we're disunited. And that's what they've been able to do so far, is disunite us. And by them seeing the people come together behind the death of Mr. Floyd, they got to feel that the power base is been shaken. They got to feel that. Submit it.
I think that knowledge is power, and I really think that at the local level there is so much.
Stop. Knowledge that is activated is power. That's what the Honorable Cyrus Muhammad teach. Just having the knowledge ain't no good. You have to use it. So
that is true. That is true.
Power. Come on now.
But you have to start with the knowledge. People who don't have knowledge, who just act, sometimes you don't know what damage you're going to do. So yes, knowledge is power, and that's where you start. Get knowledge.
You got to activate the knowledge, not just have it. Come on now.
Well, I'm continuing because
I'll take it in. We got plenty of knowledge. We the most intelligent black people on the planet. Why are we on the bottom of the planet? We don't use the knowledge that we have.
Well, which is exactly why Dr. Butler's question is so important, and that's why I'm trying to address it in terms of what we could do at the local level. Now, I personally vote in every election. I vote in every single election. Where I live at, we have city elections. We basically have an election every year. We have city elections. We have gubernatorial elections. We have presidential elections. And if there's an election, I am going to vote in it. And I encourage everybody who could possibly vote to vote in it. And the reason for that is because that is also power. When you show up to speak to the elected official, they don't know who you vote for. They just know that you voted. And the fact that you showed up on whatever wet, rainy, sunny, whatever time that you showed up, means that they know how important that is. And if they don't give you the information that you need, if they don't give you the respect and dignity that you need when you want to address an issue, you will show up with other people to vote them out. So there's a lot of power in that. And I'm not going to give up that power, which is why I vote as much as I can. The second thing after voting, because it's not just about voting, it's also holding the people who are in office accountable. Not everybody's perfect. Not everybody is going to keep 100% of what they promised to do. But it is very important to say, this is what you said, this is what you're doing, why is that? And I don't think we should fall for things are different. Now that I'm in office, things are different. No. It's like, if you were running for the office, you should have known that there was a possibility that was going to happen, and you better give a better reason than just that excuse. All right, so now that you've got the knowledge, you've got the information, you're holding the people who are in power accountable, you need to also follow through with some of the things that you need to do. People need to be more interested about what is happening around them. I'm just so surprised at how many people want to discuss the housewives of such and such or so and so, but you ask them who their state's attorney is, they have no idea. When you ask them, who makes the decisions where they live at, as to who picks up, the garbage or who shovels the snow, they have who's responsible for getting the snow off of the streets, they have no idea. And I really think those are the kinds of things that we need to educate ourselves and our people about, because since we're so busy being I'm trying to think, is it Karl Marx who talked about opium of
yes,
Hakeem, do you know what I'm talking about?
The opiate of the masses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what's being done right now. We're being fed all this junk, and it's turning our minds into mush. And some of the things that are really important to us, that are going to make us make this world a better place for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren, we're not being taught. And we, some of us know it, so we could teach it to each other. And then, like Brother Salim said, then we put it all together under one umbrella, and that's how we're going to help each other out of this awful, awful mess that we are now, find ourselves.
Now we have to wrap it up. And I want each person, I want Brother Salim and also Attorney Pierre, I want you guys in 1 minute, because we have 2 minutes left, and in 1 minute, tell us, how do we move forward, and how do we keep the momentum and make change? Brother Salim, you want to start, and I want to finish with the lady on the phone. So Brother Salim, if you can tell us in a minute, how do we move forward, and how can we keep this momentum?
The one thought that I have right now is that DAs, the district attorneys, they have to be that. While we still have an adversarial process, they still need to be, as officers of the court, they need to be looking for the truth. And they should be held responsible to put forth the truth and provide truth, even in the absence of the other side being able to find the truth. It just has to change. Things have to change.
All right, thank you. Attorney Pierre?
Oh, I definitely agree with Brother Salim, because the district attorneys have so much power, unbelievable amount of power, because they decide whether somebody should be charged, what that person should be charged with, how many counts they should be charged with, and what the negotiation is if the person decides to take a plea. I don't know of anybody in the criminal justice system who has more power than they do, believe it or not. And they said that upwards of 80% of states attorneys, prosecutors, district attorneys, whatever the term is, where different people live at, upwards of 80% of them run uncontested, and the primary as well as the general. So there's no reason whatsoever for these people to then look at other ways of getting things done. We have had a tremendous amount of research as to best practices, and they don't have to deal with best practices. They could just go ahead and do whatever they want to. And then in addition to that, when they bring a case to court, the judges are just like, well, you know, so-and-so's my friend, and so if he feels like these charges were brought in, I'm just going to rubber stamp it because I'm going to see this person once, but I'm going to see my friend over and over again. So we have to be in the courtrooms to pay attention to see what is going on, and we have to call them out on it.
Well, first of all, I want to thank my co-host, Brother Amir. I want to thank my two guests. I know hour goes quickly. We've already done for an hour, and I want to thank you, and we will have you back again because this is not the end. And I want to keep momentum on. We got to remember, if people can go to the poorpeoplescampaign.com, there's a lot happening right now with that movement. And I believe we're going to have some traction now with all the things that are going. And as they say, everything happens for a reason. There's always a time and there's always a time for the season. And it is our season now. That's right. We have to take back everything that is owed to us and make sure we make a difference. Yes, and make sure not that our voices are heard, but that we have an equal footing ground at everything that is here for us. So, as Attorney P, I want to thank you so much for being on with us today. Brother Salim, I want to thank you so much. I'm sorry we lost your video, but we're going to make sure we get that next time. We want to make sure we see you so we can. It's good when you see and hear people. And my co-host.
Oh, I'm still invisible.
I said, my co-host, Invisible Man. Thank you so very much. And I look forward to everyone joining us next Friday. Remember, Friday at 7:00, we will have very controversial topics on. And we're gonna try to keep the momentum on because we have to move forward. And this is our time. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to thank Afrique Today for all the work they put into this. I didn't say that more than enough. Afrique Today. Thank you, and thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Butler. Thank you, Minister Salim, and thank you very much, Invisible Man. One of my favorite books, by the way.
Thank you, guys.
L'entrepreneuriat digital vous intéresse-t-il? Vous voulez apprendre à construire des projets digitaux? Aimeriez-vous gagner des revenus passifs conséquents en tout lieu? Voici la plateforme des professionnels du digital, la Diaspo Academy. Ici, vous retrouverez les meilleurs professionnels de la diasporama mondiale connectés sur notre plateforme. Vous allez pouvoir acquérir des formations adéquates qui feront de vous des entrepreneurs digitaux compétents. Étudiants, entrepreneurs, coachs, instructeurs et entreprises, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Elle vous offre la possibilité de suivre votre formation en mode virtuel à partir de chez vous, où que vous soyez sur la planète. Toutes nos formations disponibles en ligne sont dispensées de manière interactive. Il suffit de vous inscrire et vous pourrez les suivre depuis chez vous. Au cours de la formation, vous passerez des quiz et examens selon votre parcours. En outre, à partir de votre tableau de bord, vous suivrez vos performances et progressions. Vous pourrez aussi communiquer avec vos instructeurs et recevoir des notifications. À la fin de votre parcours de formation, vous recevrez un certificat Diaspo Academy Certified. Que vous soyez débutant ou responsable d'entreprise, Diaspo Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Saisissez-la. Enfin, que vous soyez coach ou instructeur, ayez accès à un millier d'étudiants à travers notre plateforme. Merci de choisir Diaspo Academy, le meilleur choix. Pour plus d'informations, allez sur www.diaspoacademy.com. Diaspo Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afric Today. Fogham, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afric Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afric